Tonight, let me tell you the story of the last hearth of Hestia, a gentle tale from Greek mythology, one that is not about battles or storms, but about a flame that never failed. When winter descended on Greece and the winds from the mountains carried chill through stone villages, people whispered that in every town there was a single hearth that never went out. Its glow was steady, its warmth patient, and its keeper was not a warrior or a king, but a goddess whose presence was more quiet than thunder, yet just as enduring. Her name was Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, of home, of steady belonging. Her story is rarely shouted in great poems, but it is felt in every home where fire waits in silence to welcome those returning from the world. We begin in a small kitchen, the kind you might imagine in an old Greek village. The walls are whitewashed, the floor cool stone, and in the center is a low fire. An elder kneels by the coals, stirring them gently with an iron rod. The flame glows as if recognizing a visitor, and in that glow there seems to be the shape of a guest, Hestia herself, who comes not with fanfare, but with calm. The sound of wood catching, the soft rise of steam from a kettle, the faint scent of bread resting on the hearth. These were her temple more than marble columns. Children gather near, their eyes reflecting the ember light. Outside, the winter night thickens, but inside there is only calm. Hestia was the firstborn of Cronus and Rhea, sister to Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, and Hades. Yet, unlike her siblings, she did not fight for power, did not claim the sky or sea or underworld. Instead, she asked only for the hearth fire in every home and every city. Some say that when Zeus divided honors among the gods, she gave up her seat on Olympus so that peace might remain. For this she was granted something more lasting, the first and the last offering at every feast, and the promise that wherever a flame warmed bread, she would be there. The mystery of Hestia is not in wars won or palaces built, but in the way people gathered. In one telling, when travelers set out from their village, they touched the flame at the Prytanean, the public hearth at the city's center, and carried a spark with them. When they returned, they placed a pinch of grain or a drop of wine into the flame before stepping into their own doorway. To begin and end with her fire was to honor the circle of home. The hearth was not only warmth, but memory, the place where stories softened and bread was shared. Imagine for a moment a traveler, weary from long roads, dust clinging to his sandals, shoulders heavy from burdens. He arrives at night when the fields are quiet and dogs stir faintly. In the kitchen, he sees the low fire still glowing, never left untended. He places his pack down, breathes out, and feels the weight leave him. The elder by the hearth nods, and the traveler bows his head, knowing this flame is not just fire but welcome. That sense of recognition, of returning to a circle that waits, is the gift of Hestia. Scholars still puzzle over why her cult was so understated, yet so enduring. Perhaps it is because a hearth does not call attention to itself, yet no home can be without it. Some say the Prytaneon represented more than warmth. It was the civic soul of the city, a living center. Embassies carried embers of that fire when founding new colonies, linking distant lands back to the mother city, In Tiao. This way, Hestia was not only of the household, but of the state, the quiet symbol of unity. Her flame outlasted treaties and outshone monuments because it lived in the daily act of tending. As the elder in our kitchen settles back, the children begin to drowse. They hear the soft hiss of steam, the faint pop of wood. The goddess is not seen directly, but her presence is felt in the comfort that seeps into their bones. A neighbor arrives with a loaf of bread, still warm, and the elder tears it gently, sharing without words. Conversation flows not in excitement, but in calm tones, stories told simply to mark the hours until sleep. This too was Hestia's gift, the space where community could breathe together. In another story, a young artisan who worked in bronze prayed to Hestia not for wealth but for a steady hand. He said that when the flame of his forge stayed even, his work was true, and he believed it was because she kept the fire's rhythm. Travelers heading to sea would pour the first drop of wine into their home hearth before leaving, asking her to bless their return. Soldiers, before setting out, touched the embers with their hands, believing that no matter what waited beyond the walls, they carried a spark of home with them. The elder closes her eyes, and the children too feel themselves growing heavier, lulled by the constancy of the glow. Outside, the night deepens, and frost touches the fields. But within these walls, the small flame guards them. They know, even without speaking, that when dawn comes, the fire will still be alive, waiting to greet the day. And so the story rests here for now, with a steady ember and the hush of night around it, carrying us gently toward the next part of the tale. The story of Hestia's last hearth deepens when we listen to how her quiet presence shaped journeys and returns. In Greece, when new towns were founded, envoys carried embers from the parent city's sacred hearth across the sea. Imagine them sailing under moonlight, the ember resting in a bronze vessel, shielded by careful hands. Waves struck the hull, winds tested their sails, but the flame endured, small yet persistent. Upon arrival, before homes were built, before markets rose, they planted the fire first. This was Hestia's promise. Wherever her flame lived, there would be belonging. In one telling, a young traveler left his village with nothing but a pouch of figs and a torch lit from the communal hearth. He was uncertain of his road, unsure if he would find fortune or hardship. Yet each night when he stopped beneath the stars, he built a small fire, whispering thanks to the goddess. Other wanderers joined him, drawn by the glow, and soon his solitary flame became a gathering place. He did not find treasure of gold, but he discovered something more lasting: the comfort of shared bread, laughter at night, and the slow weaving of community. When at last he returned to his village, older but at peace, he poured wine into the waiting hearth and felt its warmth answer him, as if no time had passed at all. The hearth was never about grandeur. It was about constancy, about the ember that remained even when storms battered the land or quarrels divided neighbors. Hestia's fire reminded mortals that however far they wandered, there was always a circle waiting. Even in myths where tempests raged or gods contended for power, her story hummed like a steady note beneath louder songs. In the Homeric hymns, her name appears gently, invoked at the start and end of prayer. To begin with, Hestia was to set one's path in peace. To end with her was to close the day in gratitude. Consider the Prytanean, the town hearth. Archaeologists have uncovered these chambers in Greek cities, often in central squares. To ancient eyes, they were not mere kitchens but civic hearts where officials gathered, ambassadors were welcomed, and rituals honored the goddess of steadiness. The flame symbolized both home and polity, a reminder that a city was a family, writ large. When we hear today of councils meeting or citizens voting, perhaps we forget the soft crackle of fire that once stood at the center, holding them together. Hestia's hearth was democracy's quiet ancestor, a flame of trust. In one village tale, an elder woman tended the hearth when famine pressed upon the people. She had little grain left, but she placed the first spoonful into the flame, whispering that home must be honored even in hunger. The next day, neighbors arrived. With their own offerings, small, yet each enough to share. The famine did not vanish, but the people endured, sustained by the circle they formed around the fire. The myth is told not as miracle but as memory, that even when times grew lean, Hestia's presence encouraged generosity. The goddess herself rarely appeared in myths with human form. She did not stride across battlefields or hurl thunderbolts. Instead, she was sensed in the hush of kitchens, in the glow upon sleeping faces, in the rhythm of footsteps returning home. Some poets imagined her seated, veiled, modest, her hands folded calmly. She was less a figure to be seen than a spirit to be felt, a quiet assurance that warmth would remain. To invoke her was to remember that strength is not always loud, that peace is its own power. As the night deepens in our imagined kitchen, the elder speaks softly to the children about why every feast began and ended with Hestia. Because, she says, no matter the tale, the journey starts at home and ends at home. The children listen, eyes half closed, the fire's glow painting gentle shapes on the walls. One asks if Hestia ever left Olympus. The elder smiles and says, "She left to live wherever we are. Every coal we guard is her temple." Investigators of myth often wonder why her cult was overshadowed by louder gods. Perhaps, they suggest, it is because societies write most often about conflict and victory. Yet what endures quietly beneath is equally important. Without Hestia, no feast would have order, no household would be steady, no city could claim unity. Her story is the soft thread holding the larger tapestry together. In this way, she is both overlooked and ever-present. Picture again the winter night. Outside, winds scratch against shutters, and snow begins to drift across fields. Inside, the fire holds, steady and calm. The elder adds one last log, and sparks rise like small stars, fading into the chimney. The children, now nearly asleep, feel safe. They do not worry about gods of thunder or seas, for in this moment the goddess of Hearth watches over them. The room is round with calm, the kettle still humming, the bread still warm. And so this part of the tale rests here, with the thought that while battles fade and temples crumble, the memory of home is eternal. In every ember that glows patiently, in every shared meal, in every return after long absence, there is Hestia. The hearth does not call out, but it waits, and in its waiting, it gives peace. The last hearth of Hestia, as the elders told it, was not only a fire of the past, but a promise that carried forward into every home. Even when marble temples cracked and statues fell, the quiet act of tending embers never ceased. Mothers whispered blessings over stew, fathers tapped the log with patience, and children blew gently on sparks to keep them alive. These were rituals of daily life, so ordinary that they seemed invisible, yet in truth they were offerings to the goddess. Hestia's divinity was never distant. It lived in the rhythm of breath, in the pulse of flame, in the circle of family. One version of her myth says that when the gods quarreled over Olympus, she stepped aside, giving her seat to Dionysus. Rather than weakness, this was her wisdom. By yielding, she brought balance, showing that harmony mattered more than position. And because of this, Zeus honored her with the first and last share of every sacrifice. Imagine the scene: a festival in Athens, crowds gathering, musicians playing, smoke curling from the altar. Before the feast could begin, a priest poured wine into the fire, calling her name. Only then could laughter rise and food be shared. And when the feast ended, before the last song, again her name was spoken, reminding all that joy begins and closes with home. There are stories, too, of how she touched mortals gently. A healer in one tale prayed for calm when illness spread through her village. She did not ask Hestia for thunderous miracles, only for steady warmth to soothe fevers. She kept her patients near the hearth, giving them broth and quiet songs. Later, she said it was not her herbs that saved them, but the goddess who held the night steady. In gratitude, the villagers placed a small lamp at the hearth each dawn, saying, "Hestia, stay with us." The investigative mind might ask, was this simply symbolic? Were hearths sacred because they were practical, necessary for cooking and warmth, and so deified? Perhaps. But myth often transforms the necessary into the meaningful. The hearth was indeed vital, yet by naming it sacred, Greeks reminded themselves that daily life carried divine value. Hestia's fire was not only wood and flame but trust and memory. Each ember was a link in the chain of community, a bond stronger than walls. As our night nears its close, the elder by the kitchen hearth finishes her tale. She tells the children that some say Hestia's last hearth still burns, not in a temple but in every act of kindness. When someone welcomes a stranger to their table, the flame stirs. When neighbors help each other in silence, it glows. When a traveler returns and finds the light still waiting, it is the goddess smiling through the coals. The children nod sleepily, their breath slowing, and the elder hums, her voice blending with the crackle of wood. Outside, the frost softens under moonlight. The village rests, each home with its own hearth, each hearth carrying the memory of one divine promise. Far above, the stars shimmer like sparks scattered across the sky. In some traditions, those stars were thought to be hearths of the heavens, fires tended by unseen hands to remind mortals that they are never alone beneath the dark. In this way, the circle of home expands beyond walls, beyond villages, into the cosmos itself. The gentle lesson is clear. Home is not a single place but a circle we tend together. It is the warmth we keep alive for others, the welcome we extend, the peace we guard in ordinary hours. Even in times of distance or change, the hearth is a reminder that belonging can be renewed. To honor Hestia is to keep that ember alive, to offer steadiness in a restless world. And so, as dawn approaches in our tale, the fire in the kitchen glows low but unbroken. The elder rises slowly, places a final log upon the coals, and watches it catch with a soft breath. The children are asleep, wrapped in blankets, faces lit faintly by the fire. She whispers, "Rest well, the hearth keeps watch," and the room is filled with quiet assurance. This is the last hearth of Hestia, not lost to time, but carried in every place where warmth endures. Its light is not loud, but it is steady. Its gift is not power, but peace. As you listen, perhaps you too feel its glow, reminding you that wherever you are, there is always a circle of belonging waiting. Good night, dear listener. May the embers keep steady, may your dreams be calm, and may you always return to the warmth of home. If you enjoyed this gentle tale, remember to subscribe for more stories of myth and comfort. And now, close your eyes, let the flames glow fade into sleep, and rest in the quiet promise of Hestia's eternal hearth.